of life. Our next topic for our Monday mega panel. New revelations from WikiLeaks showing how a U.S. agency charged with stopping illegal drugs has become yet another massive intelligence organization with global reach. The New York Times says the DEA has expanded its reach far beyond narcotics, with 87 offices in 63 different countries. The agency thriving in countries where the CIA isn't welcome, with agents often dragged into foreign political fights that have nothing to do with drugs. These latest revelations coming as we learn that the controversial WikiLeaks founder, Julian Assange, has just landed a $1.3 million book deal for his memoirs. Last week, in an exclusive interview, he told the DR show he was leading a fight against Big Brother.
A new type of tyranny, a new type of privatized censorship, a new type of digital McCarthyism that is being pushed from Washington. People don't like it. Around the world, people don't like it. They don't like it in the United States, especially because of these good First Amendment revolutionary traditions about the rights and freedoms of all people to criticize and open up their government.
Let's bring back Jonathan, Jane, and Matt. Jonathan, let me start with you, and take it where you will, but some people are already saying that $1.3 million or $1.5 million for a book deal for Assange shows we're in a depression. He should have gotten more given his global fame. What do you make of these latest developments?
Well, first of all, he's become this year a major figure because we don't know yet how WikiLeaks might reshape not just diplomacy, but the size of government. This, for instance, this DEA story shines a light on an agency that seems to be out of control. It's becoming almost a rogue agency. So while I've been critical of Assange for not redacting enough, particularly early on, and there are some human rights activists, for instance, abroad, whose lives may be potentially in jeopardy because there weren't enough redactions in what was posted in an earlier group of revelations. On this particular thing, I think there's a public service here, and these press accounts about the DEA being out of control are in the public interest.
Jane Hampshire, what do you make of the DEA news that we're learning from WikiLeaks and the Assange book deal?
Well, I think it actually is great that we are learning this. One of the things that we found when we were actually trying to fight for marijuana legalization in the November election, something that Pat Robertson, of all people, now supports, is that really there's not a lot of public opposition to it. People may not favor it, but they're not, like, you know, going to go to their death trying to fight to keep it from becoming legalized. The real opposition comes from the DEA and all of the bureaucracies who get all of this money to operate these worldwide, you know, spy networks from the war on drugs. Robert Bonner, all of the ex-DEA agents got together and signed a letter in opposition to Prop 19 because they, even once they retire, make tremendous amounts of money off the government contracts. So I hope that when they're looking at cutting back the government and government spending, that this is one of the places that we look, and if that happens, we can thank WikiLeaks for that. In terms of his book deal, you know, why shouldn't he get a book deal? Everybody else gets a book deal. He certainly is a public figure, and I think his excuse that he needs it to fight legal, you know, pay legal expenses, nobody can really argue with.
Matt Lewis, tell us what you think of this DEA story, because it does seem, when you think about all these foreign offices in all these foreign countries, it is almost a kind of shadow Defense Department, almost a kind of imperialist DEA.
Absolutely. Talk about mission creep. I mean, the DEA now operating in all these different countries, obviously, you know, the most insidious thing about government is its propensity to grow and to not be accountable. I mean, I don't know that any politicians or elected officials have signed off on this or even been notified until this story came out. I mean, who knows? But it's very clear that there's mission creep. The DEA was not created to do this, and this so-called war on drugs. It's becoming very, very clear that that the war on drugs and the prohibition of drugs is actually more dangerous than the drugs themselves, because of the black market that they've created, and it's an international issue as well. So I think that, you know, maybe Pat Robertson's onto something.
What's the last word, Jonathan Alter, as we look at 2011? Has WikiLeaks and what Assange has created, is it really going to fundamentally change the nature of journalism? Is he a publisher who's going to go down in the ages as someone who's sort of controlling many of our major news organizations and their agenda?
Well, I don't think he's going to necessarily control it, but there'll be a lot of imitators and other people like him. I saw a statistic recently that was interesting, or a data point, that Daniel Ellsberg, when he was leaking the Pentagon Papers, he spent an entire year Xeroxing those papers before he was able to, leak them. In this case, it took Private Manning 15 seconds, or maybe a little bit more, but a relatively small amount of time. And one of the things I think you're going to see happen is governments and businesses become more authoritarian, put a lot more controls on information, which might be one of the more negative consequences of WikiLeaks.
We're going to leave it there for now. Yeah. Thanks very much to our mega panel, Jane Hampshire, Matt Lewis, and Jonathan Alter. Up next.